Hello and welcome. I'm just going to wait a few moments for others to join us. And just a reminder, it's great to have folks with us, and so you can just leave me a note in the comment and just to let me know who's joining us and where you're from. Welcome to Mindset Tools Mastery. I'm David Phelan. In this presentation, Finding Mindset Gold Part 4, we're going to focus on how to choose from among all the beliefs that are possible, the ones that will work the best for you, to help you to overcome the challenges you're facing and for you to achieve the results that are really important to you. As for to get ready, it'll help you to think about those challenges that you might be having or any goals that you're pursuing, particularly those in which you're not currently getting the results that you really want. I'd invite you to be prepared to write a few things down as we go along. And particularly for this presentation, you may find that you need to listen through the presentation again when you can stop it and restart it to be able to answer all the questions thoroughly. And that's okay because the recording will be available here on Facebook and also on the Transcend Personal Development YouTube page following this broadcast. So to recap what we've covered so far, in presentations prior to this series, we worked on identifying a clear and compelling vision for what you want. And as I said before, if the vision for what you want isn't clear, it might be helpful to go back and check out those presentations because some of the content in this presentation may not make a lot of sense if your vision isn't clear. And then in this series, we covered a number of different things. In part one, we addressed some misconceptions about how the mind works, particularly related to beliefs. And we addressed how to identify the mindset necessary to get desired results. We also talked about what to do when you're having trouble believing the results that you want are possible. In the second part, we continued developing ideas about adopting beliefs, and we talked about the different stages that beliefs go through, how to identify the stage you're in, and how to move through those stages to get to a place of a sense of certainty in what you're working on. In part three, we continued talking about developing that sense of certainty and specifically about collecting references to support your desired beliefs. We talked about what references are and how to find them. And so in this fourth part, we're going to address how to select the beliefs that are the most helpful. Once you know that you can adopt any new belief, and whatever the belief that you adopt becomes possible because you know how to collect the references for it, then what we want to know is from all the beliefs that are possible, what ones will work best for you. So I'd like to go back to part one for a moment and just to review briefly how we know when a new belief is necessary. So what tells us that we're on track with things and our beliefs are sufficient is that we're getting the results that we want or we're confidently on our way. If you recall the image that I used of driving, the idea was that if you're at a store and you're returning home, you would be very confident in your ability to get where you're going. And even if you'd only driven a quarter of the way there would be no doubt in your mind that you're going to be able to get home. And even if roadblocks came up, you'd be able to navigate around them and navigate around each roadblock because of your level of confidence that you're going to be able to get where you're going. And so our beliefs are aligned sufficiently when we're either getting the results we desire or we're confidently on our way. So I'd like you to think about the results that you want and just to have a sense of, are you getting the results? Are you confidently on your way? And if you remember in the first presentation, I posed several questions. And I want to come back to these questions and dive a little deeper into each one of them. So the first question is, what belief will carry you all the way across the finish line? So think about a marathon. With the marathon, is it enough to consider what it will take to run the first mile or the first 10? Not really. You've got to identify how you're going to go the whole distance. Now, I'm told that the current distance for a marathon, 26.2 miles, is the distance from Windsor Castle to White City Stadium, which is where the 1908 Olympics was run, which is a total of 26 miles. But the royal family wanted that race to finish in front of their viewing box, which added the additional 385 yards. So if you were running in that marathon, you could have gone the entire 26 miles. You could have made it into the stadium. But if you hadn't finished that additional 0.2 miles, then you didn't finish the race. So we want to ask ourselves, what belief is necessary to get us all the way across the finish line? As before, I'd invite you to compare these different beliefs and think about how they feel and ask them if it would be sufficient if you were running a marathon. So here are the beliefs. It's okay for me to try this. Now, does that sound more like the belief of someone who starts the race or someone who finishes? You know, a lot of people start races like marathons but don't ever finish. Now compare that to a belief like, I can do this. That belief might get you across the finish line. But I also want you to pay attention to the kind of experience that you're going to have, particularly when you compare it to this third belief. It's easy for me to do this. Now, if you've never completed a goal like the one that you're working on, you might find that your mind objects to the term easy. But think about this. If you regularly ran 100-mile races, would you believe it's easy to run a marathon? Probably. Whereas for a lot of people, they would think that running a marathon was difficult. What if you could have that belief that it's easy now? Remember what we said, that beliefs aren't true or false, they're just supported or not supported. So what if you could find references to support the idea that getting to the finish line is easy? Now, as you think about that, what we're saying here is that different beliefs have different levels of power. So the image that comes to mind for me is, think about the difference between a 9-volt battery and the wires that are running through your house, or a nuclear reactor. All of these have power, but the levels of power are very different. So I'd like to give you some examples of beliefs and how you might modify it a little bit for the belief to be even stronger, to be more powerful. So a belief like, I can make an impact in the world. What if that were to become, I'm 100% committed to making the impact that only I am capable of making? Does that become stronger? Or how about a belief like, I can turn this around? What if that became, I will do whatever it takes to turn this around so I'm in a position that's even better than before the challenge? Or how about something like, a great relationship is possible? Many clients that I work with are in relationships or would like to be in relationships, and nobody really wants to have a terrible relationship, right? So can you believe that a great relationship is possible? But how about if we tweak that belief a little bit to be something like this? If I consistently focus on what I can control, we'll have a relationship that is both enjoyable and rewarding. Or how about beliefs related to our income, right? You might have a belief or be trying to adopt a belief that sustainable income is possible. But what if you tweak that to, there's a demand for what I offer, and by focusing on fundamentals, sustainable income is inevitable? Would that belief be more powerful for you? Or how about the belief, I have something unique to offer? That could become, no one else in all of human history has my unique set of gifts and talents. If I don't make myself available, no one else can. Or how about a belief like, I can overcome my fear of what people think of me? Could that become, if I focus on the value I bring to the table rather than what others think of me, I and those around me will benefit abundantly? Or how about a belief about your offer and what you're charging? Are you trying to adopt a belief that my offer is worth the price I'm charging? What if we adjusted that one to, right now, there are people who are waiting for what I have to offer and will find the price a no-brainer because of the value I deliver? Does that become stronger? Would that carry you all the way across the finish line? Or how about a belief, I will be okay on my own? You know, some people go through that when there's a relationship breakup, or I have young adults that are leaving their parents' homes for the first time, or even somebody who's considering leaving a full-time job to start something on their own. And they'd like to be able to believe, I'll be okay on my own. Could that be adjusted to, I have or can acquire the knowledge, the resources, and connections to make it on my own, even if those currently in my life don't think I can? Does that become more powerful? Does that support you in the result that you're trying to accomplish? So those are examples of different power levels in beliefs. And as I'm going through those, I'm not trying to tell you which one is more powerful, just I want you to compare the power levels of those. So now it's your turn. I'd like you to think about what you're trying to accomplish. Think about the beliefs that you currently have about those results, and ask yourself, are those beliefs strong enough to get you all the way across the finish line? Can you make any adjustments to add more power to the beliefs? Don't worry if you identify a belief that lacks certainty. Remember that you can always find references to make that belief more certain. What we want to focus on here is the power. Can you find a belief that has more power for you if it was believable, if you were certain about it? So take a few moments to write down any ideas that come to you. Now that you've had a chance to think about the beliefs that will get you across the finish line, the next question to ask yourself is, what will get you over the hurdles? Remember, we addressed that anytime we go after a new result or try to adopt a new belief, our mind is going to surface objections. And remember that we said that when those objections come up, that's just our mind trying to keep us safe. We want to know what the objections are, because if we're not aware of those hurdles, we'll trip over them. Remember, we talked about objections like the hurdles in a track and field event. By the time that you've crossed the finish line, you will have cleared all those hurdles. So we're trying to explore what beliefs will clear each hurdle. So you may remember from the earlier presentation that one of the beliefs that I had to work with was the belief that being in business for myself is risky. And remember that that hurdle got cleared because I recognized that being in business for myself is actually safer than the last 3 jobs I had had, because all of those companies went under. So being in business for myself is safer clears the hurdle of being in business for myself is risky. And again, when you are trying to identify these new beliefs, they may not be believable at first. the level of certainty may be low. Remember, we talked about stages, and your belief can go through stages from complete unbelievability to complete certainty, right? And we do that by collecting the references. So as you come up with a belief that will overcome that hurdle, don't worry at this point whether it's completely believable or not. So another example is there's not enough time. And what's really interesting to me about our beliefs is that our beliefs shape our internal representations, right? So let me give you an example of an internal representation. And that comes from a few years after I had opened my practice and things were going along really well. And there was a time that I changed my availability. When I first started in practice, I would see clients in the evening on certain days a week. And at this point, I had changed the night that I was working. And I was trying to be as flexible as I could be for my clients. So I was starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and had the potential to go to 8 o'clock at night. And I thought to myself, well, if a client needs to see me on their lunch at noon, then I can take my lunch at 11. Or if somebody wants to see me on their at their dinner time at 5, I could always wait until 6 to eat. So I didn't block off a specific time for either my lunch or dinner. What ended up happening is that clients wanted to see me, and appointments were getting booked from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all the way solid. And it got to the point where I was really dreading that day. And in my mind, what I noticed I was doing was representing it like the columns in a scheduling software. And I like the sort of the week view, and then each day is a column. And so on this particular day, the column, or excuse me, the appointment that representing my first appointment, 8 a.m., was at the bottom, and the last appointment at 7 p.m. was way up high. And I realized that that image really felt unpleasant to me, right? And so I asked myself a question, and this is based on the beliefs that I have about how we represent things to ourselves. I asked myself the question, well, 12 hours, how much is that compared to my entire week? And as I did that, the column decreased in size. And then I asked myself, well, how much is that over the entire year? And again, it got smaller. How much of that is that over the course of my entire career? And it got smaller and smaller and felt much more manageable. And then I changed my schedule and gave myself a lunch and a dinner break, and it wasn't a problem. But what's interesting to me is that that representation, that image that I made in my mind, is framed by the beliefs we have. And so if I have a belief about, time is scarce, then it's going to create representations about that scarcity. If I represent to myself that time is flexible and time is dependent on how I view it, then it allows for me to be to create changes in the way that I'm representing it that work for me. So if you're wanting to clear a hurdle like there's not enough time, it could be something like there's more than enough time for the things that are truly important to me. That belief clears the hurdle of there's not enough time. So another hurdle might be something like others won't go along with this idea. But a belief like I can surround myself with people who support me and challenge me will clear that hurdle. So again, with each new belief, we can identify variations that have different levels of power. So we want to be asking ourselves, what belief clears the hurdle, but then also what's the power of that belief? So we could have a belief like, I don't have the resources that we're trying to change. That's the objection, right? And so maybe a belief like, I'm committed to finding the resources would clear that hurdle. But compare these next two, right? How about the resources I have needed have always been there when I needed them? Or how about something like, A mindset completely aligned with a clear and compelling vision attracts resources. So again, does it get over the hurdle, and how powerful is it for you? Now it's your turn again. So I'd like you to think about what you're trying to accomplish. And as you think about that, notice any objections that come up for you. Take a moment and see if you can identify the beliefs that help you clear those hurdles. If you get stuck trying to figure out how to clear the hurdles, you could simply ask yourself, what if the opposite were possible? So if the objection is this won't work, what if this will work is possible? So we talked about what will get us all the way across the finish line and what will get us over the hurdles. The next question to find high quality beliefs is, what will you believe once you've already accomplished the results? So let's say that your result is to launch a new product or service. And imagine that after you get it off the ground, it goes great for 10 years. At that point, what would you think about the viability of the product or the service? Would you believe that there is a customer base? The customers want this. The customers are willing to pay for it. That it's easy to sell this, right? What else would you believe at that point? Your beliefs might shift. You might shift from, I want to make this happen, to, I'm the kind of person that does make this happen. Or it might shift from something like, others question my abilities, to, others know I can get this done. Or from, I'm trying to figure out how to do this, to, this is just how I do things. If you can imagine yourself beyond the point in which you've already accomplished the goal, and then ask yourself what you would believe then, you'll find beliefs that get you across the finish line, that help you to overcome the hurdles. And remember that what we've said before is, it's okay if you don't believe that 100% right now, because it's finding references that strengthen the certainty of the belief. Now, after you're thinking about what it takes to get you across the finish line, and beliefs that help you to do that, and what it takes you to overcome the hurdles, and what you would believe if you're already accomplishing the results, next it might be helpful to ask yourself about what you want to experience along the way. And so the image that came to mind for me when I was working on this was, think about the difference in the journey if you're on an electric bicycle versus a Ford Pinto, if you are old enough to remember those death traps, or a Lamborghini, right? All three of those might get you to the destination, but the ride is going to be very different. So there's a difference in your experience of the journey that is dependent on the beliefs that you maintain. So you can ask yourself questions to identify the kind of experience that you're going to have. And the question might be, what beliefs will get you there the quickest, the easiest, with the least amount of pain or the most enjoyment? So notice the difference between these beliefs. I can figure this out versus I can figure this out with the guidance of someone who has done this before, versus I can figure this out with the help of an expert who has done this repeatedly, who would love helping me, and who knows how to make it fun, right? Does it make sense, again, that all three of those beliefs might get you across the finish line, but you may have very different experiences in the journey with them? So the idea here is that if you're going to be intentional about the beliefs that you select, you might as well choose beliefs that clear the hurdles, get you across the finish line, and allow you to enjoy the process. So talking about enjoying the process, I want you to think about what it is that you enjoy. right? Do you enjoy working with others? Do you enjoy expressing your creativity? Maybe for you, it's developing new understanding. Or how about challenging yourself? Whatever it is that you enjoy, how can you work that into the belief that you would like to adopt? So each of us is different. What we respond to is going to be different. So you're taking your unique personality and you're building that in to the beliefs to create a situation that the beliefs work best for you. So take a minute and think about what beliefs would help you to enjoy the process that you are engaged in. Now, remember, we have this flexibility to choose from a wide range of beliefs because beliefs are not in the category of true or false. Beliefs are simply supported or not supported. So the process that we want to follow is identify the belief that allows you to clear the hurdle, get you across the finish line, and enjoy yourself in the process. Identify those beliefs without worrying about the level of certainty, because we know that certainty comes with references, and then get to work finding the references that will support that belief. As you're developing these beliefs, there are a couple other tips that might be helpful. You may hear other people suggest that it's okay simply to shift from a negative belief to a neutral belief, or even from a negative belief to a belief that's less negative. An example with that would be, if you say to yourself, I always screw things up, a less negative belief would be, sometimes I make mistakes, right? A neutral belief might be something like, life is 50-50. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail, right? If you went way in the opposite direction to something that's extremely positive, it could be something like, I'm 100% confident that I will set my mind to any goal, that I will accomplish any goal that I set my mind to, right? Now, sometimes people look at that and say, well, that's too big of a leap, right? Now, that advice of shifting from one negative to something less negative, or from a negative to neutral, would be helpful advice if you either didn't know how to find references, or if you weren't willing to put in the time and the effort to find the references. Because if you know how and you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can find references for just about any belief. So I would really encourage you to find the beliefs that are as strong as you can language them, and then take the time to find the references to support them. It will serve you in the long run much better. Another tip is that it is okay to choose a belief that already has a high degree of certainty. If you choose something that already has a high degree of certainty, you won't need to spend as much time and effort developing the references for it. So think about, if I had a belief that I can master Italian, right? And I was very confident about that. If I tried to add another belief, like in my ability to master Spanish, that I may start off with a high degree of certainty about that because of the similarities in learning new languages, particularly languages that are similar. So if you can find a belief that already has a high degree of certainty, it is okay to adopt that. And then one last tip I'd like to leave you with is, feel free to play around with the language that you use as you express beliefs. So I'm going to give you several variations of I can do this. And I just want you to think about your reaction to them, right? Think about the emotion that is contained in these. How do these statements feel to you? Okay, so the first is, I can do this. Compare that to, I'm going to freaking kill it. Compare that to, I've got the wind at my back and angels all around me. Or how about something like, I'm going to dance my way across the finish line. Or, it's all downhill from here. Right now, those are all variations of that first one, that I can do this. But you see that the language can create different feelings with it. And how it's going to impact you is going to depend on your personality and your experiences. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to play around with the language that is most empowering for you. Compare them, right? We're not chiseling these in stone, so you can go from one belief to a different belief. You can swap words out, find the things that really work for you. So to review what we covered today, knowing that any belief is possible if you find sufficient references to support it, and different beliefs have different power levels, which can be increased by the language we use, then you can choose any belief that will empower you by asking yourself what belief will clear the hurdles and get you all the way across the finish line and allow you to enjoy the process. So speaking of enjoying the process, I hope you enjoy experimenting with your beliefs to find the ones that really support you. And I would love it to hear any feedback that you have. If there's any support that I can give to you as you work on this, please feel free to reach out here on Facebook or send me an email or give me a call. I'd love to assist you in whatever way I can. So this wraps up our series on Mindset Gold. And just keep in mind that these recordings are available here on Facebook, and they're also available on the Transcend Personal Development YouTube channel. Again, I'd love to hear from you. Any questions that you have, comments, suggestions for topics that you would like to address, any suggestions that you have of how I can make this content even more useful to you. So you can leave those comments here. You can send me a message. So once again, this is David Phelan, and blessings until next time.